Salutations to our fine podcast audience. Welcome to 3 Ps in a Pod, episode 256.
We made it, and because I know we're about to do this episode, I just figured out what I want to say about the kid part. So it came to me while I was sitting right there.
Wow, he turned and looked at Nathan, Jason.
I'm going to forget it, and he's going to say, Nathan, you had something you wanted to say about the kid part, and I'm going to remember it.
We're going to let that happen early on because it seemed super important.
I know.
It felt good.
All right, I'm glad.
It felt good to finally figure out. That's what I meant.
Okay, good.
Okay.
We were having a conversation before we started filming that they don't
we
get to hear
always
about.
do to try to figure out if we know what we're going to try to do.
We set the direction for how we're going to approach the question.
Yeah, we certainly don't sit and talk it all the way through.
Give you a little inside baseball.
None of us have patience to talk the thing all the way through.
No. And I was really stuck on, because I actually think, at first I said, I don't know about this question. And then the more I thought about it, I said, this is a pretty good question because it's really got me thinking about some stuff.
Well, that's great.
So
that's
now
a good question for you.
Yeah, I like that.
So
let's get to it. Here it is.
Here's the question. I know that as Christians, we aren't supposed to be prideful, but I'm proud of things, my kids, my life, etc. Am I misunderstanding the godly ask, or is this kind of pride sinful?
Go, Nathan.
Yeah, you want to say something?
Okay.
Go
well, so originally what we said about the proud of things of the kind of middle section of this of I'm proud of my kids. And I said, well, I say I'm proud of my kids. And
yeah, I do too.
I said, but that can even be dangerous because there are ways to look at my kids and go, man, look at what I did. Look at how I raised them. Look at how I made them. And every decision they make is a sign of how good I did. And that, I would say, gets more towards the sinful pride than the one.
Well, I've always just said, if you're going to do that, when they make a bad one,
you get that.
You gotta not hold them accountable. We got to hold you accountable.
Yes.
If you get the credit for them making good decisions, then when they make a bad decision, you just say, hey, son, I'm sorry. That's got free off of you. I'll take all that punishment. That's mine.
And so I said, when I tell my kids I'm proud, what is it I'm actually feeling? Because I don't feel a lot. I mean, there are times, certainly, where I go, whew, me and Jennifer did a good job. We did a good job. And that's whatever. The times, though, when I look at them and it genuinely makes me want to say I'm proud of them, what it ultimately is admiration. I look at them and I look at my kids and I go, which I think is less pride because it ain't about me. I have all my daughters are really great at lots of stuff, but I have one daughter in particular who, because of just the struggle she had as a kid, just academics have been a struggle for her whole life. And man, she busts her butt every day. And I mean, there were days it was just tears of, I can't figure this out. I can't do it. It's not working for me. And she just busts her butt at it. And every day I just tell her, I'm just so proud of you. Like, I know so many people that would have the challenges you have and just say,
find reasons that they don't have to push.
Yeah, and then start telling everybody, well, I have this, and if you knew my backstory. And I said, you just go. And I said, honestly, there are times I want to be like that. I look at you, and so I think if that's what you feel, if you look at your kids, and what you mean by pride is you just go, man, I'm beaming because I'm associated with this person who's doing just wonderful things, and they're just or if what you feel when I think about my life, I said it to God this morning, is just things are often very hard, especially recently, things have been very hard in my life. But I just woke up and I just felt it this morning but I have a really good life.
Yeah.
Like my life didn't have to be this good.
That's right.
I don't deserve it to be this good. And I might even say I'm proud of my life. What I really mean is I'm grateful for my life. Yeah. And that's why I tell guys.
But admirable for kids is a good word, Nathan. I hadn't thought of that. That is what I have felt as well, is when they do really well. I admire them because, I mean, you and your brothers at times have done things at ages I couldn't figure out how to do at the same age.
Right.
You know, you made choices, good choices at ages where I screwed things up. And, you know, that is what it is.
I just want to, and so I think if that's what you mean, to answer that, the first part of the question of, if what you mean by I'm proud of things, I'm proud of my kids, I'm proud of the life that me and my wife have built, I'm proud of my marriage, I'm proud of the relationship we have. But when I really think of it, once again, is I'm very grateful for my marriage. And I've said this to people, I think because I was in ministry at such a young age, and you were in ministry at a young age as well. I guess you were as well. So I would frequently...
Most everybody goes into ministry.
Yeah, they got to do it pretty young.
Because if you were older, you'd go,
no, this is a bad decision. Why are you making me do that?
I don't
You're right.
know. I don't know.
As I said that to someone the other day. I think I wrote it into a message recently about I got married really young, and I said, people always said to me, you don't even know what you want out of life. I said, that's the time you should get married, because if you knew what you were getting into, you wouldn't do it.
That's
but
why
I said,
I say to people all the time, you've got to get a guy to plan a church when he ain't smart enough to figure out this is too hard for any person to do.
Yes. But I look at my marriage a lot, and I do think I'm very thankful for it. But I would have people come to me sometimes and be like, you're so young, but you're so wise. You're so wise behind your ears. And when I'm young, puffs you up a little. I am one. But what I eventually just started saying was, all it is there are principles in the scriptures. I listened to people who were wiser than me, who made mistakes that I didn't have to make, not because I was smarter than them, but because I just trusted when they said, don't go do that thing, because I could learn from someone else's mistakes, not my own. But that's not a me thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's me in the sense that I trusted, but it's not a proud of me. Once again, I'm very thankful that God surrounded me with the people He surrounded me with, that He gave me. I grew up in a family where I trusted in the scriptures at an early age. So when I look at that, I go, even that, I'm not proud like I did something.
So we were trying earlier to decide what's a sinful. I think
what's sinful pride and versus.
I think pride, and I said something. Y'all both said, "Oh, that's good," and I think it is good. But as I've sat here and listened to more. I think
he's gonna mess it up. He had a good one. He's gonna.
All right, well, y'all can edit.
Okay, all
right. I think pride is overconfidence in myself, but really, it's me taking credit for stuff that I know that if I broke it down, I didn't have the majority of the control over what made all of that become. Like I'm proud of my marriage too, and my marriage, we have had to work. Mm-hmm. There have been challenges. But I have also worked with people that I go, we had it easier. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Some because of the way we both were raised, families we came from. But I've looked at people before and go, man, if I were in their situation, I don't know. Mm-hmm. So, and I look at myself honestly and go, I don't know that I could have done what they needed to do. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So there's no sense of pride that in my marriage, I mean, I did what has been required to, coming up on 45 years, but it ain't all me. God was involved. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of other people around us that encouraged us, that helped us, that gave us advice.
And I think what you just said is the dividing line for me when I think about it. And I was listening to y'all talk about this is you have an understanding, an overarching sense of what I'm responsible for and what I'm not.
Right.
That's good.
And
it's a boundary thing.
It's a boundary. And I think that's when you cross. So whenever you cross over, and I think, because the scriptures say God opposes the proud and gives grace to the humble.
Right.
So what is that about? Well, when I read that, part of what I think that means is when I have slid God off of the throne, so to speak, and I have taken that spot of saying, no, I did this, or my ability, or my intellect, or my wisdom, whatever is what got me here, without the recognition of, no, I wouldn't have had any of that, and I wouldn't be anything without God. And then so understanding that if what you call pride wraps you back in on yourself,
that's good.
Then I think you have crossed the line, and let's. If you want to get real technical, that's idolatry.
That's
yes,
right.
it is.
And it's idolatry of me.
Of me.
Yeah.
It's
of
me.
And so when it wraps back into that, then yes, I would say that's a sinful pride. If what you mean by pride, like we've been trying to say, is no, I recognized what I have and I'm grateful for it. Well, okay, you can call that whatever you want to.
Yeah.
But that's what it comes down to. So I think that's, for me, that's where the line comes. I don't know if that helps you or not, but that's the way it makes sense in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that idea is really important. I think getting to the idea of understanding my life in terms of cooperation with God, we say interactive life with God. This idea that, and we've had to really push hard in our teachings and stuff, because I think in our culture, probably because of the wealth of our nation and kind of the, way that things have gone in our nation, Americans have a very overinflated sense of confidence in our abilities and what our money can buy and what our things can buy. We've had to hit really hard on, full dependence on God. Everything you do, you're just fully trusting in God. And that's true. I don't want to take away from that. But sometimes I think the way that gets translated to people is almost this head down, walking through life. I'm a worm and I can't make any good decisions on my own. And so God, unless God tells me a cheeseburger or hamburger, I can't choose. You know what I mean? I can't make it because I'm not. Well, that's not a very good cooperative partner.
I think that comes from, Nathan, if the opposite of pride is humility, which in the contrast of the little verse couplet that you quoted, God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. Pride and humility are coupled. If humility is, I think I'm terrible.
Right.
Which a lot of people do think. I can't.
Yeah.
Well,
and in particular, there's a whole
theological system
of Christianity that is, you are just terrible and horrible.
Yeah.
And that's what dependence on God looks like, is I'm a worm and I need God to make me anything valuable.
Yeah. If that's the opposite, then I can see where you get to that pride is, thinking way too much. So the opposite of that has to be, but humility is just, I find my right spot. I am in the slot I am intended to be.
Yeah.
A dandelion is pretty in its own way.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean? Most people look at it in their yard, which is supposed to be, they think, all Bermuda.
Right.
And when a dandelion comes up, they see that as a problem. But a dandelion is in its slot.
Yeah.
And it is pretty when now, later you go, but it has found its place and done the thing it was created to do. Yeah. That's what I'm looking for, is what am I to do in God's great world that He made, that was here long before I came along and will be here long afterwards. And everything I think I did, it was, when I do it right, it's me finding my slot in this conversation, in my family. And, this is another tough thing for people. Your slot in your family changes over time. We're in the midst of aging parent things with Becky's parents, our dad. And you aren't always at the top decision-making place anymore. And that happens for everyone. And it's not, you think, I'm not worthwhile having any input on this. It's just that you're at a different place. It's me finding my spot.
Well, and the place God may have you may require you to trust you. And it doesn't mean you don't trust His voice, but to trust your voice and to trust the wisdom that He's given you and the perspective He's given you. If you're the parent of a child, to go, well, their opinion's equally valid to mine, and because they're made in the image of God.
In a different place.
Or if you're in a position of authority and leadership, and someone's placed you in that position, and for you to go, well, everyone else has a thought too. This isn't what this means. I mean, there's even, I think a lot about, I think it's Psalm 8, where it talks about the wonders of God creation, but then he gets to who is man that you are mindful of them. Now, there's one way to read that, which is, who am I?
That's right.
I'm the worm. Well, God even knows me. But then it says, you made them a little lower than the angels. That to the point that, and it goes this other part, that people might even see other human beings and worship them. That they might even, and we've all seen this. One of my daughters said it the other day when they were watching they saw like a concert footage, and they said, are those people worshiping that celebrity? And I said, in some ways, yes. I said, because
there'll be a lot of worship at Super Bowl Sunday.
I said, any thought that you have in your mind is they figured out some secret to a good life, that if I could be like them, that is a form of worship. The idea is you figured out the good life, and if I would do what you do, I could become like you. Well, we've experienced that in humanity, that we look at other humans and go, LeBron James has figured something out that other people haven't figured out. That Taylor Swift has figured something out no one looks and goes, there was a lot of luck involved.
Oh, yes.
Everyone goes, they hustled harder than everyone else,
Well,
and they blah, blah,
Hey,
blah.
nobody look at LeBron and got, no, there's some DNA there that
Well,
that
yes,
didn't
yes,
all of us get.
Yeah.
Certainly there's that part, but then there's also
And
just
so
a luck and opportunity and
Yeah.
all these different
Your
things.
DNA is a direct result of nothing you had
Nothing.
you had nothing to do with.
And so all of that to say, humility doesn't mean that I get to this place where I'm low on myself. What it ultimately means is I understand the ultimate importance of the universe. And even in my own life, I am not the most important person. And so the biblical way to look at it is, if you want to grow in humility and really test your humility, is say, am I doing anything out of selfish ambition or vain conceit? So if I'm the person, and honestly, I would say this, the more power and authority you have in a relationship or in in your work or whatever it is, the harder you have to ask that question, because a lot of parents, myself included, we do a lot of stuff out of selfish ambition and vain conceit. Yep. We were just talking about the pride you have in your kids. How many of us, I remember hearing a parent one time say to a kid who was in a bad situation, don't you know this reflects on me? Don't you? That's selfish. That's vain conceit.
It is.
That's everything about your life is either positive or negative for me, which now puts that person in a real low position, which means no matter what you do, it don't come back on you. It comes back on me. Now, there is a way to say, hey, everything you do, it's about God. Now, that's a different way to look at it, but it's about me.
Well, when you approach a child that way as a parent, you just really ratchet up the heat and pressure that exists in your house, in your relationship, to the point where it is really hard to have a relationship with a person like that.
Yes.
So if I just was helping a client work through some parenting issues, and when your main question in your relationship with your child is, how do I get this child to behave in a certain way and fit into a certain box, that's what we call a very bounded set. And it's really, really difficult to relate to somebody in a set like that. But if I look at it like you did and say, my kids' choices are not me. They're not a part of my identity. That frees you up. That gives you enough separation for you to look at that relationship and go, how do I love and serve and lead like Jesus would in this situation, do my part, and even discipline and draw boundaries. Not saying you don't do that.
That's all a part of influence.
It's part of all of it. How do I do that in the Jesus way, and then allow whatever comes, and then I'll deal with that in the Jesus way as well. It's such a freeing kind of thing. And I say all that to say, I think that's when you've understood that I am being humble and not prideful.
Yeah.
I'm parenting in a humble kind of way.
If I don't come into the equation, because I'm just at that age of parenting where discipline's a pretty common thing. As they get older, it's those are less conversations you're having. But
that's a different kind of discipline.
It's a different. I get it, but I just mean it's often moment by moment. What are you doing? What is
that's
this?
right.
And so Jennifer and I regularly have to just say, is this just something we don't like?
That's right.
Or is this something that we think is going to affect their ability to love God and love others? And if I look at you, and if you're showing patterns of deception, if you're showing patterns of every time you say something I don't like, I'm going to say something worse to you, I go, well, that is going to affect your long-term ability to love God and love others. So I do need to put boundaries around that. I do need to put discipline around that to make that happen. But if I don't really like the way you're handling this, I don't like the way this makes me look as your parent, that I'm out in public with you and you're behaving this way, that does get too much in pride, because it's a me thing, not so they choose to live their life this way, but they're still able to love God and love others.
It comes to another part of pride, is me worrying about what other people think about me. That's a pride issue.
It is.
Because the truth is that the best thing I've ever heard on what other people think of me is, I think it's Eleanor Roosevelt that said, what other people think about me is none of my business.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, that's good.
They can think whatever they want to think.
Well, I think when in Dallas it said the sign of a mature Christian is someone who can allow others to think whatever they will.
Yeah, I have
Yes.
that quote. I used to have it on my wall all the time. I must kindly allow people to think whatever they will,
Mm-hmm.
or lovingly allow people to think whatever they will.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that doing nothing out of selfish ambition, vain conceit. And then the other part is in humility, consider others more. And you can put whatever you want because everyone wants to change this into something that doesn't sound as whatever, more valuable than me, more important than me, better than me. There are all kinds of translations. And because I'll go through, those are the stupid things I like to do. I like to go through on certain verses, go, let me see every translation on this and see what everyone tried to do. Mm-hmm. And on a verse like that, everyone's got a different word because it feels like you're trying to go, well, more valuable. No one's more valuable. I mean, we're the same value, or no one's more important. We're the equal. And what he says is, I'm supposed to treat you as if you're more important than me.
Well, and everybody that's had a kid knows.
Yes.
In this relationship, to me, there is someone more important than me. It's them.
Yes.
And if it came down to me or them, I'm choosing them.
That's right.
If it comes to life, if it comes to well-being, if it comes to them, if there's a choice to be made, I know what that looks like.
Yes.
I just now have to apply that the way the Lord asked me to apply it, to not just apply it to my kid.
Yes.
I know what it looks like. I just don't get to play games with it. I just then get to apply that to other people. They also are more important than me.
There's a really good, and I think it's called the Litany of Humility that I'll occasionally go through and just pray over myself. And it's just things of, Lord, grant me, and then, because it's call and response. So you say something and then there's things, but a lot of them are things like, allow others to be praised when no one notices me. That's really hard for me to pray. Mm-hmm. If I can't get to a place where I realize, one of y'all preaches a sermon or something and I see 3 or 4 people come up and talk to you, I'm like, do I get 3 or 4 people? That feeling of, is it okay with me? Is it okay with me that more people got more out of this sermon than they got out of something? Is it okay with me when someone else does a better at something I really want to do well at? Is it okay that no one notices me? Because ultimately I know Christ notices me, and my ability to just do, as we've been talking about in this series, just doing small things with small things no one else notices. No one's going to see it. No one's coming to pat me on the back for them. No one's coming to do these. One is pray that I get set aside and other people exalted. And I'm like, I don't want set aside sounds so hard. And I keep going, there's got to be a better translation than me said. What if it's pray that others get exalted while I'm also getting exalted? Or I
could just stay in my place.
Yeah. What is this? But set aside, and just thinking about, those kind of words are really important for me. And I do think pride is the ultimate, because the scriptures talk about it so much. It's the ultimate human, but it manifests itself differently for all of us. And some of you hear that and go, wow, that's really vain. Vanity is a big problem for me. Vanity is a huge, what other people think of me, that is a huge problem for me. But yours manifests in different ways.
That's right.
Everyone's got some kind of pride thing, but having a way to regularly hold up in front of me is, am I making this about me? Am I making this about what I want out of life? Yeah. Those are pretty good questions to
And I would just say, if you're a person who naturally doesn't step out front, which, obviously, because we all speak on stages, that's a different thing for us, because that's a number one fear for people, speaking in front of folks. So we're different than that. Pride's a problem for every single person, including the person that never would do that, never would be up front, would never sing a solo, would never lead a group, would never do thing.
Sometimes the outward appearance of humility can be prideful.
That's right.
Oh, sure.
And that's a whole other
conversation. That's what I mean. Yeah. You have to be really, you have to work on this, because it appears in the scripture of that thing of pride and haughty eyes and all those things, that the way you look at people, the way you look down on people. That doesn't mean you have to say anything.
Yeah,
it becomes a barrier between you and God. One of the things that somebody said to me years ago, and I have tried to practice as much as I could, is doing things that only God and I know about, that I know are the right thing, and never telling anyone.
Mm.
That will destroy pride in your life.
Mhm.
That's right.
If you can decide, I am regularly going to do right things, and I will, that no one sees.
Mhm.
So it's not serving in a way that everybody sees.
Yeah, that's right.
It's doing something that is the right thing to do for others that I don't ever mention to anyone.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think what it comes down to, just to wrap it up, I think what we're trying to say to you is you can't just give a yes, no, black, white answer on this for anybody. This is work. This is nuance.
Yeah,
it's something you've got to sit and reflect on and ask yourself a lot of really difficult questions to get to the truth of, am I being prideful right now? Or is this something else? What's the condition of my heart? And I think if you spend time on that, I think that's a worthy goal. That's a worthy challenge for you to undergo. I think we all have to do that. Even the three guys included right here talking to you. We got to sit with the Lord in prayer and allow him to search our hearts and understand when it crosses that line from being sinful to being all the things that we talked about. And so I would, if I can give you a pastoral word on that, just go and do that.
Yep.
Go and sit with Jesus and allow him to speak to your spirit about this. And wherever he puts his finger on something that for you looks and feels and you believe is pride, then allow the Spirit to root that out of you. And that would you start doing that, that'll take you long enough, and you probably will die with some pride.
True.
So just let him do that work. So, but great discussion. Thanks for the question. Not straightforward, but hopefully we gave you some help on that. So, all right. You guys have a great week, and we will see you next time.